wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-700-6898. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-700-6898. That's 800-700-6898. For $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-700-6898. 800-700-6898.
Get ready, Padres fans. It's time for the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network.
Tatis at third, 2 outs. Fernando takes off. He's going to steal home without a play.
Coming up, we'll have a recap of the previous Padres game, a preview of today's starting pitching matchup, and our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Mike Shildt. From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today the Padres take on the Cincinnati Reds in the first game of a 3-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the Reds, left-hander Andrew Abbott, and for the Padres, right-hander Joe Musgrove. Hi, good everyone. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch in Cincinnati is coming up at 3:40. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll also hear from Manny Machado. We'll check in with Gwynn Jr. in just a few minutes as well. Much more to do as this 7-game road trip for the Padres continues. But first, let's set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations: La Mesa, Vista, and Oceanside. Padres entered today with a record of 25-25. Padres just won 3 out of 4 in Atlanta to begin this road trip. Padres have won 5 of their last 6 series. The one loss was when they got swept by the Rockies, but aside from that, it's been good baseball as of late. Meanwhile, the Reds are 19-28. When the Reds arrived in San Diego in late April, they were 15-13. Padres took 2 out of 3 in that series. Since that series started against the Padres, the Reds are 4-15. Reds have lost 3 in a row. They all came against the Dodgers over the weekend. Here today, Joe Musgrove comes off the IL, makes his first start since May 1st. Before we turn our full attention to this series opener in Cincinnati, let's recap yesterday's doubleheader in Atlanta.
How did the Padres fare in their last game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind. Presented by Hamul Casino. With thrilling slots and tables and all the best rewards, Hamul Casino has all the fun you're looking for. Hamul Casino. Fun above all else.
Game 1 of the doubleheader, Padres trailed 5-0. They got a run in the 5th inning to make it 5-1. They got another in the 7th inning on Jackson Merrill's RBI single to make it 5-2. They still trailed 5-2 in the 8th inning. Jake Cronenworth dug in with the bases loaded.
Again, another crack at him here. Here's the 0-2 pitch. Cronenworth muscles it into center field and a base hit. Kim will come in to score. Tatis rounding third. He's going to score a 2-run single for Jake Cronenworth. This is a 1-run game in the 8th inning.
There were still 2 on base for Manny Machado.
Pitch to Machado, line into left center. That's a base hit. Profar rounding third, going to score easily to tie the game. Cronenworth is being waved. He's on his way. He's going to score. Not only have they tied it, they've come all the way back to go in front. And the Padres now lead it 6-5. A 2-run double for Manny Machado.
Machado comes through with the big double.
A 4-run eighth inning, Padres went on to win it by the final score of 6-5. The bullpen tossing 5 scoreless innings. It was the third time this season that the Padres came back from a deficit of 4 or more runs. They've done that more than any other major league team. So game 1, a win, an opportunity to sweep in game 2. Well, game 2 didn't go nearly as well. Braves led 2-0. Going into the 5th inning against Randy Vasquez, Marcell Ozuna hit a solo home run to make it 3-0. Vasquez went 6 innings, gave up just those 3 runs. Meanwhile, Brave starter Chris Sale was great. He tossed 7 scoreless innings for the win. The final in the nightcap of the doubleheader, the Braves 3 and the Padres nothing. So the Braves and the Padres split. Yesterday's twin billing, Padres did win 3 out of 4 in the 4-game series. Wins on Friday, then on Sunday, then in the doubleheader opener yesterday. And that sets the Padres up pretty well heading to Cincinnati as they begin this 3-game series against the Reds. First pitch coming up at 3:40 at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. Let's check in with Tony Gwynn Jr.
Let's go inside the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup from Tony Gwynn Jr. in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
We go to Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. We're joined by Tony Gwynn Jr. as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:40. And Tony, before we focus on today's game and this series in Cincinnati, your takeaway overall from what the Padres did in Atlanta?
They just played better baseball. You know, they got some good starts from all 4 guys really, and their offense I think played like they had the previous week. Not the week that they got the sweep, but the previous road trip. And so, their Padres record is very indicative of how they've played this season when they have been able to put good starting pitching together and go out and execute on offense in the way they did in that Braves series. It's been great results.
Joe Musgrove making his return from the IL here today. Joe on the mound against these Reds for the 2nd straight time. His last start before going on the IL was also against Cincinnati. It was actually a pretty good one. Here today, Tony, for Joe, what are your expectations for him as he comes off the IL?
Well, I mean, knowing that, he hasn't thrown since that last start, I don't expect that he's built up, where he was, I think around 90, 95 pitches before he went on the IL. So, how efficient can he be in the whatever pitch count he has? We haven't got word on what that is. I imagine somewhere in the 70, 75 range. But if he can be efficient with that, he can get deeper into the ball game. And we know that when the Padres get a good start, it really increases their chances of going out and getting a win. So I'll be watching to see how efficient he is early in the ball game.
Tony, beyond just the efficiency for Joe with probably some sort of pitch count here today, what about the effectiveness for Joe? Obviously a bit of an up and down start for him before the injury, gave up a lot of home runs before the injury. As far as the way he goes about it on the mound, attacking hitters, what do you want to see?
Listen, I think Joe is, who he is for a reason, and that's because he's usually able to go out and command his spin, and that's always going to be a major factor with him and a guy like Yu Darvish. When they're able to spin the baseball effectively, is usually when they're having the most success. Now, what does that look like as he comes off the IL for the first time and hasn't thrown since that last start? I don't know. I think we're all kind of have to sit back and wait and see.
Let's talk a little bit about this bullpen and more specifically Jeremiah Estrada, because he got the 8th inning in game 1 of the doubleheader win yesterday. Estrada obviously played a big role out of the bullpen a couple of times in that series in Atlanta. Tony, to you, from a stuff perspective with Estrada, what's really impressed you with him?
I mean, he clearly has some explosiveness with that fastball. It seems like it has some life to it as it gets to that dirt circle out of his hand. And so I think that's part of it. I think really his success will depend on how effective he can be with that split. Can he throw it where he wants to?
Right.
And as long as he's able to command his fastball, you've kind of seen the results that he can get. But ultimately, at this level, you can't be a one-pitch guy. And so even with that explosive fastball, how effective can he be with the split, especially pitching in high-leverage situations?
Finally, Tony, before I let you go, just to focus on this Reds team for a moment, sitting at 19-28. And as I got ready for the pregame show today, I was almost amazed at how badly it's gone for the Reds lately. 4-15 in their last 19 games. They've lost 3 in a row. Just getting ready for this series, and I suppose early on in Cincinnati today, talking to some people, what's the sense you get for this Reds team? Because it really hasn't gone well going back to that series in San Diego.
Well, they're in the midst of 20 consecutive games against the National League West. That's the first issue. They're banged up. Steer is banged up right now. He's not on the IL, but he's not in the lineup. They already had a bunch of guys coming into the season that were already hurt. And so when you're trying to deal with different injuries, you're playing the National League West, which I think most people would say is a far tougher division than the Central is. You're already going to be playing behind the 8 ball, and so Ellie De La Cruz right now is really the guy going best for him. Their big signing, bringing Jamer Candelaria, hasn't necessarily paid off at this point. They got some of the young guys like Benson and Espinal are struggling a little bit. India's struggling. So, you got all those factors going.
Right.
It's not hard to see why they've struggled as bad as they have.
And a long way to go, obviously. Still relatively early in this season. And you really look at it for the Reds, even with how poorly it's gone lately, Tony, they're 4.5 games out of a wild card spot with plenty of time to go. That's the new era of baseball, right? The expanded postseason. And once again in the NL this year, nobody's running away with those wild card spots. So plenty of time for them, plenty of time for the Padres. We don't have that much time, Tony, until this game begins. We'll talk to you and Jesse coming up at 3:30 here in San Diego. Thank you for the time, as always.
All right, Sam, take care.
All right, that's Tony Gwynn Jr. joining us from inside the Padres radio booth as we get ready for today's game on the Padres radio network. Series opener in Cincinnati. When we come back, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt and much, much more to get to as our pregame coverage continues on the Padres radio network.
Thanks for listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. Visit EcoWaterSoCal.com for a free water test and consultation.
Welcome back to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. Your water perfected. EcoWater SoCal. Your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:40 in Cincinnati. Opener of this three-game set. Right-hander Joe Musgrove on the mound for the Padres, making his return from the IL. Lot to do between now and first pitch. We'll hear from Manny Machado coming up in just a little bit. We'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. We'll tell you who's hot, who's not, our keys to the game, and much, much more to come. First, let's hear from the Padres skipper.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
Like we've said a handful of times, Joe Musgrove returning from the IL today to make this start in Cincinnati. Here was Mike Shildt on Joe Musgrove returning.
Joe Musgrove's back, man. That's a good day, right? We're excited about Joe. Listen, we'll let the game dictate a little bit. I mean, he's not clearly going to be built up to, 90 again. He hadn't thrown since the last outing, but we'll evaluate the number of pitches as the game goes.
And we'll see what that pitch limit looks like for Joe Musgrove today. An important note there for Mike Shildt. It's not like Joe had a rehab outing or something like that. So we'll see how many pitches he throws. You just hope good effectiveness today for Joe Musgrove, no matter how many pitches he ends up throwing. Jeremiah Estrada, certainly a big part out of the bullpen in a couple of wins in Atlanta. An 0.77 ERA. Now in 9 appearances out of the bullpen. He struck out 15 in 11 2/3 innings. Here was Mike Shildt earlier today on Estrada.
Jeremiah's got, the one thing that I appreciate about some of the analytic things and the measurables is it clarifies what our eyes can tell us. He's got a really good fastball. He's got an elite fastball with a lot of life to it. So he's got an outlier pitch in that, and he's starting to throw his secondary pitches for more strikes. So you got 2 weapons in the strike zone, and that's going to be the key to his game is, being in that strike zone and controlling counts.
And certainly was interesting yesterday in the opener of the doubleheader, a 1-run game, and Mike Shildt went to Jeremiah Estrada in a very traditional setup role. We'll see if that is his role moving forward out of the Padre bullpen. Manny Machado, a big hit in game 1 of the doubleheader yesterday. Manny coming through in a clutch situation. Here was Mike Shildt when he was asked about Manny coming through in that spot and the way Manny's performed while coming back from the injury.
I tell you, the thing that's been most impressive has been the other things that Manny's done that maybe we don't appreciate as much, I don't talk about as much. And, he's gone out and played really good defense for us since he's been back, which we'd expect him to do, but he's done a nice job of that. He's run the bases very well. He's made some really good base running plays that have helped contribute to us winning games. So he's doing some of the intangible things that, we always appreciate and look at the fact that, he's got a slug and he's got to hit homers and all these different things. But for my seat, guys that help you win baseball games is all that ultimately matters. And he's been able to do a lot of little things well.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt before today's game. We'll hear more from Mike on our post-game show coming up a little bit later on this evening. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:40 in Cincinnati for this series opener. As always, if you want to get involved on our pregame coverage, you can do that in a number of different ways. You can tweet at me or Instagram DM me at SammyLev, SammyLev. You can also comment on our fancy new video stream on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Let me know what's your key to today's game. May just read that key here on the air as we go along during our pregame coverage. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to kick things up another notch? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not on the Padres Radio Network.
We begin with the hot category. Luis Arraez certainly in that category still for the Padres. Arraez in the midst of a 25-game on-base streak. He has multiple hits in each of his past 5 games. Jurickson Profar, meanwhile, in the midst of a 10-game hitting streak. He's batting .406 in 32 at-bats during that span. Jackson Merrill hits in 6 of his last 7 games, including 3 multi-hit games in that span. Merrill is 10 for his last 25. The not category. We take a look at the Reds Reds, Ellie De La Cruz 0 for 13 with 8 strikeouts in the final 3 games of the series in LA for the Reds. He did go 4 for 4 with 4 steals in the series opener, but De La Cruz all of a sudden 0 for his last 13. That's a look at who's hot, who's not, as we get ready for the Padres and the Reds coming up shortly in Cincinnati. Now let's take you around the horn.
What's the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball? Sam Levitt takes you around the horn on the Padres Radio Network.
Oh, 1 to Devers, and he swings, launches, left field, back toward the wall. He's done it again! Rafael Devers is not human. A 6th straight game with a home run.
Mike Monaco on WEEI in Boston, Red Sox radio. Couple of home run streaks to watch tonight around the major leagues. Rafael Devers, the very talented Red Sox third baseman, looks to become the first player to hit a home run in 7 consecutive games since Mike Trout did it in September of 2022. Ken Griffey Jr., Don Mattingly, and Dale Long all hold the all-time record, each homering in 8 straight games. And like you heard on the call there, Devers has homered in 6 consecutive games. Another home run streak to watch around baseball tonight. Gunnar Henderson looks to join Ronald Acuna Jr., Brian McCann, and Jack Clark as the only players in the modern era aged 22 or younger to hit a home run in 5 consecutive games. A couple of other notes around baseball on this Tuesday. 2023 AL Cy Young Award winner Garrett Cole is scheduled to face batters today for the first time since beginning the year on the injured list with elbow inflammation. Cole hoping to make his return in mid-June. And finally, Ranger Suarez, the left-hander for the Phillies, 8-0 with a 1.37 ERA this season. He's looking to become the 5th Phillies starter in the franchise's history to win 9 consecutive games, and he has an opportunity to do that here today. We'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard coming up in our next segment, but just some headlines for you entering the action today around the major leagues. When we come back on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show, we'll update you on the injuries for Xander Bogaerts, what the Reds' injury situation looks like entering this series. We'll have our keys to the game, full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, and much, much more to do. Right-hander Joe Musgrove on the mound for the Padres, coming off the IL, returning today in Cincinnati. First pitch coming up at 3:40 on the Padres Radio Network.
The San Diego County Bar Association offers a public service to assess your need for a lawyer. You will receive 3 references to qualified attorneys, each of whom will provide you with 30 minutes of legal consultation without charge. Visit needalawyersandiego.com to learn more.
For 70 years, Sid's Carpet Barn has been San Diego's leader for high-quality flooring at the lowest possible pricing. For a huge selection at everyday lowest prices, visit any Sid's or sidscarpet.com.
Sid's Carpet Barn, come on down, come on down. Yeah! Get ready for a grand slam of healthcare. Palomar Health is recognized as world's best hospital 4 years in a row and is stepping up to the plate to provide you with the best care. From primary care to game-changing surgeries, our lineup of 300 world-class doctors are ready to knock it out of the park. Palomar Health is bringing healthcare into the future using innovative technologies for better patient outcomes, because winning means your health and happiness. Champions of healthcare, champions for you. Visit Palomar Health.
Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:40 in Cincinnati. Padres trying to keep the good vibes going into the Midwest. Padres winning 3 out of 4 from Atlanta, splitting that doubleheader yesterday. We'll see if the Padres can keep that momentum going here today with right-hander Joe Musgrove on the mound. Certainly on our injury report, the last couple of weeks, we've talked about Joe, his status coming off the elbow inflammation. That's what it was called on the transaction when it was made. We learned later it was more of a tricep tendonitis for Joe, but Joe is coming off the IL as of today. The Padres are dealing with another significant injury, as are the Cincinnati Reds. Let's learn more about them.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit him up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Xander Bogaerts, of course, injured himself yesterday diving for a ground ball, suffered a left shoulder injury, and as we learned after Game 1 of the doubleheader, the initial imaging, the results were negative, which is a good thing. Right now, Xander is considered day-to-day. Mike Shildt commented on it a little bit before the game. Really no update on Xander. Right now, they're calling it mild shoulder inflammation. He's undergoing more tests, we believe, today. So we'll see what the updates are in the hours, days to come on Xander Bogaerts, but certainly doesn't sound like Bogaerts will play at all today, and obviously not in the starting lineup for the Padres today. As far as for the Reds, Spencer Steer, there was a thought maybe he'd be back in the lineup today. He is not in the Reds lineup. He was limited to pinch hitting duties on Sunday in LA due to ankle soreness. So Steer, who's really been struggling, is not in the lineup because of that ankle again here today. We'll see if he's available off the bench at all. But Spencer Steer, one of the more important players in that Reds lineup, not in their lineup for this series opener. And that's a look at the key injuries for both the Padres and the Reds. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Tuesday.
Let's take a trip around the Bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We take a look at scores from around the major leagues. Everything yet to begin, so we'll have much more on these games coming up in our post-game show. Mets and the Guardians in Cleveland at 3:10 Pacific time. Brewers and the Marlins in Miami at 3:40. Other games, Giants and the Pirates in Pittsburgh at 3:40. Rangers and the Phillies in Philadelphia at 3:40. Twins at the Nationals in D.C. at 3:45. Red Sox in Tampa Bay against the Rays at 3:50. Mariners and the Yankees in New York at 4:05. White Sox and the Blue Jays in Toronto at 4:07. Braves and the Cubs at Wrigley in Chicago, 4:40 p.m. start time in that one. Tigers and the Royals in Kansas City at 4:40. Orioles and the Cardinals in St. Louis at 4:45. Angels and the Astros in Houston at 5:10. Rockies and the A's in Oakland at 6:40. And finally, Diamondbacks and the Dodgers in L.A. at 7:10. And that is a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Tuesday across the major leagues. Manny Machado spoke inside the Padres clubhouse earlier today. Here was Manny on the team bouncing back in Atlanta after a tough series against the Rockies to begin last week.
You know, we knew what we had in front of us. It was a road trip. We enjoyed the day off and, came back to work on Monday. Not Monday, Friday. It's all a blur. It was a long day yesterday for us. But yeah, we turned the page and we moved on to the next series. And, we beat a really good team in Atlanta and, took 3 from them. So, we started off the road trip pretty well. And, coming here is we're going to try to do the same thing, try to take another series and go out there and try to win tonight.
And something we talked about earlier, the Padres' ability to come back in games, and they've done it a number of times already now in the first 50 games of this season. Game 1 of the doubleheader yesterday, Padres were trailing 5-0. They came back to win it 6-5. As we said earlier, it was the third time this season that the Padres came back from a deficit of 4 or more runs. Manny Machado inside the Padres clubhouse earlier today spoke about the Padres' ability to come back in games.
there's no quit, no quit. We're going to go out there and play to the last inning, last out is made, and, we're never going to give up. Our team is built around going out there and competing for 27 outs, and we're going to do that every single night. And, there's going to be some good days, there's going to be some bad days, but we're going to go out there and compete.
So that was Manny Machado inside the Padres clubhouse earlier today, and we'll see how Manny does. I want to read a couple of keys to the game we have on our YouTube stream right now. We've got Philip commenting in saying Manny has to keep it going after moving back to the number 4 spot. We'll take a look at the Padres lineup in a moment. We also have Wesley saying the Padres key is to flip the script against lefties. I'll say this about the keys from Philip and Wesley. You're on to something. I have very similar keys coming up here in just a second. Let's take a look at the full starting lineups today while we have a few minutes. For the Padres, their lineup without Xander Bogaerts looks like this today. Luis Arraez at second base leading off. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field batting second. Jurickson Profar in left batting third. Manny Machado at third base batting cleanup. Jake Cronenworth at first base batting fifth. Donovan Solano, the DH, batting sixth. Jackson Merrill in center field batting seventh. Luis Camposano doing the catching, batting eighth. And Ha-Seong Kim, the shortstop, batting ninth for the Padres, with right-hander Joe Musgrove on the hill. Meanwhile, for the Reds, just a couple of highlights in their lineup. Shortstop Ellie De La Cruz, he's in the number 2 spot. Jake Fraley batting cleanup. In right field, Jamer Candelario at first base batting third. Tyler Stevenson, the number 5 batter, doing the catching. Mike Ford, the DH, batting sixth. Second baseman Jonathan India batting seventh. Santiago Espinal at third base batting eighth. Will Benson in center field batting ninth for the Reds. And the left fielder for the Reds, I'm going to be honest with you, I got to figure out how to say this last name, and I should have looked it up before I got into the lineups here, admittedly. Jacob Hertzubais, I think it might be. I'm going to look it up during the break. Make sure I said that right. The leadoff man. That's why I got a little hesitant there to get into the Reds lineup. I was like, I've never seen that last name. So pardon me on my lack of prep for the Reds leadoff hitter. Tonight, I'm going to get it right. I'm going to take a look during our next break. All right, we heard some of your keys to the game. See, I'm not perfect here in the studio. We all make mistakes. Got to do a better job. Let's give you our keys to this series opener in Cincinnati.
How will the Padres unlock a victory in today's game? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Honor Buick GMC Hummer in National City.
Key number 1 for the Padres in this game: keep the bullpen rolling. Padres relievers were awesome during the 4-game series in Atlanta. The bullpen allowed just 1 run and stranded all 3 runners they inherited in 12 innings and a third during the series. So can the Padres bullpen keep on doing what it's been doing? That's key number 1. Key number 2. Can Manny continue to turn a corner? And was yesterday the start of him turning a corner? Machado had 3 hits yesterday in the doubleheader, including the go-ahead 2-run double in Game 1. Manny's now 5 for 12 in the past 3 games. That's after going 3 for 38 in the previous 10 games combined. It's a lot like what we were talking about with Xander Bogaerts a couple of days ago when his bat was starting to come around. Is this just mini streak for Manny, or is it the sign of him turning his season around? Can he continue to turn a corner tonight and during the rest of this road trip? That's key number 2. Key number 3, Joe keeping the Reds in the yard. Even with missing nearly 3 weeks, Joe Musgrove is still allowed 10 home runs this season. That's tied for the second most allowed in the major leagues this year. No secret, home runs were a big problem for Joe in the early part of his season. Coming off the IL, can he limit the home runs? That's a question in this start tonight for Joe Musgrove, and if he can, I think Joe will be in pretty good shape. That's key number 3. And key number 4, deal with the lefty. We've talked about it at length before. It's almost shocking how low the Padres team batting average is this season against left-handed pitching. The Padres are hitting .210 against lefties this year. That ranks second to last in the NL. And let's be honest, last night against Chris Sale didn't make that average a whole lot better. The left-hander went 7 scoreless innings. So this should be a team in theory, right? With the names like Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado, usually Xander when he's in there, even Jerkson Profar now batting from the right side, the switch hitter, Ha-Sung Kim. You feel like this team should be able to handle lefties a whole lot better. Keep in mind, again, they're hitting .210 against left-handed pitching this year. The Padres hit .271 against lefties last year. So you feel like that's a number that's going to normalize a little bit over the long haul. Will it? And can the Padres hit a left-hander in Andrew Abbott tonight? We're going to find out. And that's a look at our keys to the game. When we come back on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show, I am going to tell you the right pronunciation of that Reds leadoff hitter's last name. That's item number one. We're also going to tell you what to watch for, and we'll take a much deeper dive into our pitching matchup between Joe Musgrove and Andrew Abbott. If you remember, Abbott had a really, really good start against the Padres last year. We'll see how the Padres do against them here tonight in this series opener. First pitch coming up at 3:40 in Cincinnati. More after this on the Padres Radio Network.
Stay tuned to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. Visit EcoWaterSoCal.com for a free water test and consultation. Your water should be perfect.
TimberTech is the #1 premium composite decking brand. It's got the beauty of real wood without all the maintenance. To get free samples or find a local contractor, visit TimberTech.com. TimberTech, everything wood should be.
At Hamul Casino, nothing is more important than fun. And fun means lots of action at the tables and slots, amazing food and drink, live entertainment with the hottest DJs and bands, big events, thrilling giveaways, and we're the closest casino to downtown San Diego. Come see what's happening at Hamul Casino. On Saturday, May 25th, go big with San Diego's biggest barbecue. Get free brisket and sides with live entertainment.
Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:40 in Cincinnati. Series opener, Padres had this road trip get off to a good start, taking 3 out of 4 in Atlanta. Now 3 more games remaining on this 7-game trip. Today, tomorrow, and Thursday in Cincinnati. Right-hander Joe Musgrove on the mound for the Padres today. Left-hander Andrew Abbott on the mound for Cincinnati, and we'll take a much, much deeper dive into our pitching matchup in just a moment. I told you before the break, really an embarrassing moment for me, and I really try to never do this. This is like broadcasting 101, so I'm very, seriously, I'm very angry at myself because I'm starting to go through the Reds lineup if you missed it in our last segment. and I look at their leadoff hitter, and I'm going to be honest with you, I had not done prep on Jacob Hurtubise is the correct pronunciation, but it's spelled Hurtubise, and it is Hurtubise. So to the Hurtubise family, I'm sorry for not pronouncing it right the first time. I've got it now, and it is Jacob Hurtubise in left field, leading off today for the Cincinnati Reds. I hate when I do that. That's like broadcasting 101. Have the pronunciations right, but early game, looking at the lineup here, I'm like, I don't know how to say that one, but everybody else I was good with, so we move on. Let's tell you what to watch for in today's game.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovementsSD.com.
We tell you what to watch for in today's game, and really something to note throughout this series in Cincinnati. Remember last year when the Padres could not win a one-run game? Remember how bad it went in one-run games? Well, that's not the Padres in 2024, so that's a good thing. But it is the Cincinnati Reds in 2024. The Reds are 1-11 so far in one-run games. That's the worst record in the major leagues this season in one-run games. So keep that in mind. If we have a close game late, Reds have not been good for a variety of reasons in those close games. It reminds you of what the Padres went through last year. Well, now the Reds going through it the first third of this season. Again, 1-11 in one-run games this season. Keep an eye on that. Something to keep in mind as we go along here tonight. Couple of other notes for you beyond what to watch for. The Padres continue to be a really good road team this season. Padres are 15-9 on the road now, the third best road winning percentage in the NL behind just the Dodgers and the Phillies. On the road, Padres batters have a major league best 287 team batting average, and their ERA as a team, 3.35. That's third best in the NL. On the road, San Diego has scored 5.25 runs per game as the visiting team. That's also second highest in the NL. So if we learned anything from that series in Atlanta, it's that the Padres continue to do a lot of good things on the road, and they come into this game sitting at an even record of 25-25. You keep playing this well on the road, and you start playing a little bit better at home. I think some very good things in store for the Padres the rest of 2024. Let's dive into our pitching matchup between Joe Musgrove and Andrew Abbott.
Let's take a look at who's on the bump today with our starting pitching preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Right-hander Joe Musgrove on the mound for the Padres today, 31 years old, here in 2024, 3-3, a 6.37 ERA in 8 starts, 41 innings, 36 strikeouts, 13 walks, 10 home runs. His last start before going on the IL came on May 1st against these Reds. 6 innings, 2 earned runs given up, 4 hits, he struck out 9. 3 of his 4 starts before going on the IL were quality outings, and he had, like we just described, a really good one against the Reds to begin May, then went on the IL. 11 career outings against the Reds, some with the Pirates, some with the Padres, a combined 3.75 ERA in those 11 career outings. 5 of them in Cincinnati, a 5.09 ERA in Cincy. He last pitched there in April of 2022, and how about this? The Padres have won each of Musgrove's last 5 starts against the Reds. We'll see if they can make it 6 in a row here today. The arsenal for Joe, as we know, throws a little bit of everything. The 4-seam fastball, cutter, curveball, sweeper, slider, changeup, and a sinker. Meanwhile, on the mound for the Reds, left-hander Andrew Abbott, 24 years old, now in his second season in the major leagues. He's 2-4, 3.06 ERA in 9 starts, 50 innings, 41 strikeouts, 14 walks. Last start in Arizona, 7 innings, 1 earned run given up. In fact, Abbott has been really, really good since the start of May. He's given up just 3 earned runs in 17 innings this month. That's a span of 3 starts. Remember, he faced the Padres in July of last season. It was one of the finest starts in his rookie season. 7 2/3 innings, 1 earned run allowed, a career-high 12 strikeouts, and the arsenal for Abbott, the four-seam fastball, changeup sweeper, and a curveball. And that's a look at our starting pitching matchup here today between Andrew Abbott and right-hander Joe Musgrove. With Joe Musgrove coming off the 15-day IL today, the corresponding move was sending right-hander Randy Vasquez to AAA El Paso. Also worth noting that right-hander Logan Gillespie was optioned to AAA El Paso after the doubleheader. He was the 27th man for yesterday's doubleheader, and my goodness, what a nice impact Gillespie had in Game 1. 2 scoreless innings out of the bullpen, so Gillespie is back down to AAA El Paso, and again, the corresponding move for the Padres getting Musgrove off the IL is optioning Randy Vasquez back to AAA. You've been listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres radio network. EcoWater SoCal, your water should be perfect. Find them online at ecowatersocal.com. Let's set the table one more time for you before we send you out to Jesse and Tony. They'll have the full starting lineups again, first pitch, and then all the play-by-play coming up at 3:40. Padres entered today with a record of 25-25. Padres just won 3 of 4 in Atlanta to begin this road trip. Padres have now won 5 of their last 6 series. The one series loss was when they got swept by the Rockies to begin last week. So had they played just a little bit better against the Rocks, maybe we're saying 6 out of their last 7 series, but, or I should say 6 out of their last 6 series, but 5 out of their last 6 series the Padres have won. Meanwhile, like we said earlier, the Reds are going through a really tough stretch right now. Reds are 19-28. When the Reds came to San Diego in late April, they had a record of 15-13, 2 games above 500. Padres took 2 out of 3 in that series. Since the start of that series, the Reds are 4-15 since the start of that series in San Diego. Reds have lost 3 in a row. They all came against the Dodgers over the weekend. So the Reds trying to desperately get back on track, and the Padres trying to keep the good times rolling into Cincinnati. Like we've said a handful of times, the big story for the Padres today, the return of No Joe, San Diego's own Joe Musgrove, coming off the IL today, making his first start since May 1st, and we'll see how Joe does against a very talented Reds lineup, despite the Reds not winning a whole lot lately. You look up and down this lineup, De La Cruz, Candelario, Fraley, Jonathan India, Will Benson. A lot of good hitters in that lineup for Cincinnati. We'll see how Joe does on the road. When we come back, Jesse and Tony have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game show. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan, and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.
Each month,